Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome everyone to our radio show today, where we encourage everyone to drop everything and read. I am your host, Denise Bryson, and I am so glad to be on the show today. And I am very excited to be interviewing Wendy Thompson, the author of Summon the Tiger and Third Order. Hi, Wendy. How are you today?
Hi, Denise. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad for you to be here. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an old lady. I retired from corporate life in 2010. I like to dabble in a lot of very, very different things. I have undergrad and graduate degrees from schools in Florida, University of Miami in Coral Gables, and then Florida State. I lived there for 7 years. I lived in Chicago for a couple of years. And then I moved back to Michigan, where I was actually born, to work for General Motors.
Okay.
So I spent 36 years in corporate America before I bowed out.
Awesome. That is what a career. That is awesome. Now tell us, it's been said that everybody has a book in them, but it's that what separates the writers is that second book. And so you are on your second book, The Third Order.
Yes, well, I'm actually on my third book. My second book.
Oh my God, awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about The Third Order. Tell us about Maggie and her handsome new friend, Ben.
Well, as I was thinking about Maggie, the story is a suspense, cat and mouse kind of book, but I didn't want my heroine to be like a Lara Croft, trained by the Mossad kind of person. I wanted her to be more relatable, someone who might not know how to do karate chops and to the throat and all that other stuff, that she has to use her head because she's not all that big and she doesn't have that kind of training, but she gets herself in a pickle. So Maggie is a strong person. She's not easily spooked. She's not easily scared. She can engage her mind without going into a panic. It's someone who I really like her. I mean, I think I would really like her as a person. It's not that she doesn't ask for help, but she tries to figure it out by herself first. And I just think that she's very real that way.
That's awesome. And so tell us about this, what is it called? It's an amulet. What is it called?
It's the amulet. It's, an amulet is kind of like a big pendant, but big, right? You've seen necklaces with a big old emblem there. It's so the story goes, I had a lot of fun with the history of this. And they say, write what you know. Well, I love Assisi. My dad was born in Scotland. It's like, how can I pull these together? I actually sang a concert in Assisi. It's a wonderful town. And I was there a couple of weeks before the earthquake. And that earthquake killed 4 people in the basilica. And so I thought, well, let me see, how can I tie this together? So I kind of knew I wanted like a Dan Brown kind of book because of St. Francis. So I did all this research on St. Francis. How do I tie it to Scotland? I found a guy who went on the Third Crusade with Richard the Lionheart, who went back to Scotland. I mean, there's a lot of true history there. So then I thought, well, how am I going to tie this together? And then I thought, well, you know what? In Dan Brown's book, they had that mysterious, cultish group that wasn't really part of the church, but had religious underpinnings, kind of like awful. I thought, well, you know what? I can do that. So I took a lot of inspiration from Dan Brown's book. And the Third Order, actually, St. Francis founded 3 orders. And his third order is what it was called for a long time. They changed the name in 1978, but there actually was a third order, and it had very, very strict rules. When I read what the rules were, I couldn't even get through them all. It's like almost like scratch your head 3 times, turn the doorknob twice, do 3 circles and walk through. You know, St. Francis told these people how much they could pay for their clothing. I mean, very specific. You eat this on Monday, you eat this on Tuesday, you do this right before meals, you do that right. It's a very regimented, at least the old way. It's very regimented. And I thought, well, that's kind of perfect for something that might spin off a cult,
Yeah.
you know, with all those rules. And that's how it started. And I really had a lot of fun with it.
I can see. So what inspired you to write the book? Just the thrill of all of those different things, of, you know, the little bit of, like you said, a little bit of scholar, the heard, you know, like things coming from all over the world, or what was your inspiration?
Well, okay. I think it's kind of humorous, is that come October, I kind of get a personal panic. What am I going to do all winter long? I live in Michigan. It gets cold. You know, I can't go out and garden. You know, it gets dark at 4:30. It's like, ooh, right? And so it's my second book. And after the first one, it was a wonderful way to spend a winter. It was wonderful. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to write another book. It was fun. I enjoyed it. And the idea started to percolate, you know. And so I kind of jumped around writing the book because it was formulating in my head. And I'd sit there and go, okay, well, she needs to have a love interest. Where's she going to meet him? Oh, I don't know. Where is she going to meet him? So I go do a bunch of research about New York, and, you know, I find a real exhibit. It was a real exhibit, you know, in it. That's how she met Ben, a real exhibit. And then I thought, well, what's Ben doing in New York? Well, he likes architecture. And then I found out that Columbia had a PhD program in architecture. I mean, I did all that kind of research, and it just sort of came together. It was very exciting, actually. When I found something that tied it together, it was like a eureka moment. It made my winter.
One of those types of moments. So now, what has been your reception of the book, and how well has it been received? And what do you think that your audience will gain from reading it?
I was humbled and honored by the reception it got. Even Kirkus Reviews said that it was very emotionally fulfilling and what do they say? Ultimately, I can't remember the word. I know, it was good. It was a good word. It's gotten mostly 5-star ratings.
Oh, God.
I've gotten a lot. In fact, all but one. I got 1 4-star and the rest have been 5-star. It's been very well received, which is a really good encouragement and motivation for me to write another book, because that positive feedback feels good.
It does. It really does. It helps a whole lot for you to keep pushing it going. Because now when you begin to write the book, are the characters coming through and telling the story through you? That's what I always feel like the authors are doing. They're telling the story, somebody else's story, through them.
You know, they're actually like telling their story. It's almost like I gave them all the tools that they needed and the history they needed, but they became their own characters in a large way, in a very large way. I've heard people say that that's what happens. Like, they thought the story would go left, and all of a sudden the characters are going right. Well, when they start to really get developed, and when they start to feel like real people, then you get to a point where you say, well, how would they react? Not like, how do I want them to react, but how would they react? And that really did drive a lot of the story. I mean, I went back and I changed a few things because I thought, you know, well, the way I write is I go like this and I back up a little, and I go like this and I back up. So I do the rewrites sort of during, so I don't have to do a big rewrite after. But I a couple times I went back and I said, oh, she's going to want to do this, so I need to go back 2 chapters and set it up. And I would do that. I would set up what I knew was going to happen, but I didn't know back here that was going to happen, because she became real to me, and Ben became real to me. I mean, it's like I could feel them and touch them.
That's good. Now, what do you think? What type of journey as the author do you feel like you went on in the writing of the book, in the formulating the characters and the writing? What personal journey did it take you on, if I may ask that kind of question?
Well, the one thing that surprised me, the biggest problem I had was what category it fell in. I kind of thought I was writing just this action adventure thing, and all of a sudden people are telling me, no, there's this, and it was my editor who first pointed it out. There is a very strong emotional undercurrent through the whole thing, and that's what Kirk is like, and that's what people like. It's the story of how this woman's I don't want to give the story away, but there's a tragedy, right? And a lot of the story is, how she overcomes that part of it. And apparently that surprised me, because I did business, I was never known as, the emotional one, no drama. And all of a sudden it's there somewhere because it came out in the book, which was the biggest insight to me, that I didn't even know I had it. And there it was. And apparently it was powerful. And I'm going, my. That's the first thing that Kirk has said. It just touched on this. It brought out all this emotion, deep emotion. I'm going, okay, who are they talking about? It's not me. So that was the biggest thing.
That is awesome. So who do you feel like of the characters is the antagonist in the story?
Well, there are actually two. The main antagonist is a guy named Clancy.
Mm-hmm.
He is not in his right mind. Now, no, it's funny is that I had a neighbor who has not since passed, and what I didn't know at the time is I knew that he was a hoarder and OCD and probably on the autistic spectrum, but he had these quirks. Like, for instance, he would just chordle in the middle of a sentence where it didn't belong. And it's why? Well, because he was having a hard time. He wanted to be friends, but he didn't know how. So, a lot of that antagonist was modeled after that man that I had met. And then the other antagonist is Jack, and he is modeled after someone that I had the unfortunate, I actually had to meet him, and he was a real psychopath. Wow. So I have two kind of like bad guys. The one is kind of like a sick bad guy, and when you get into his mind, you kind of realize he can't really help it, and the other one's just, he's a lost cause. He's just psycho. Just, cannot relate to people, is narcissistic, he's a sociopath, he just doesn't even care. Just, ooh.
He's that kind of person.
Yeah, he's that kind of person.
That is awesome. Well, we're going to get ready to take a break. We will take a short break, and then we will be back to discuss more about your novels and your masterpieces. And right now, we're going to take a break and hear from our wonderful, wonderful sponsors. We'll be right back with you.
National Authors Day is November 2nd, 2019. This annual event is getting a fresh look with a parade that starts at the Texas State Capitol and works its way south down Congress Avenue. Join us as we celebrate the joy of being a published author and the joy of reading. For more information about the parade, merchandise, and other events related to this event, please visit our website at authors.dearindy.org.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lector is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielector.store. Use coupon code VIDEO19. Again, that's indielector.store, coupon code VIDEO19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Hello, welcome back to the radio show where we have been interviewing Wendy Thompson, the author of Summon, The Tiger, and the Third Order. Welcome back, Wendy.
Thank you again.
Now we're going to talk about your other masterpiece that we have, and I'm getting excited just to hear more about Summon the Tiger. And I was reading a little bit of it, and I was like, wow. And so can you tell us about that? And because Wendy is actually a character in this book, so I would like to know more about it.
Well, that October, I was looking for something to do, and I had asked one of my sons, I think I'll be a substitute teacher, and he thought that was the worst idea. He said, we were horrible to those teachers. You'd hate us. I said, well, okay, what should I do? He said, well, why don't you write a book? Write a book about what you've learned in life and your story. So I did. And I had apparently, of course, I must admit, I never knew how different my life was until I kind of like wrote the book, and then I was getting feedback from people. So that again was eye-opening. You never know, right? You kind of always assume, okay, that's what life is.
Yeah.
It's an autobiography. It stops in about 2010. So people have been telling me I should write a sequel. And I was the middle child. I had an older brother and a younger sister. And my dad came back from World War II very sick and with PTSD, but it wasn't diagnosed at the time. And even my uncles would say he came back a changed man. Well, we didn't know. We didn't know back then. And my mother, bless her little heart, she was not prepared to have to take care of someone who had issues. She was very emotionally immature. She had some severe personal problems. Well, it became a real powder keg. Our life was a powder keg. It was not fun.
Right.
I went away to school, and when I was 18, my father decided that he was going to sell his practice. He was an orthodontist, and buy a freighter. We were going to travel around the world. So he went to the Netherlands, and he bought a freighter, and he brought it back, and we started out to go around the world. I dropped out of college. My sister was young. She was 15 at the time. And my brother didn't come with us. He was older, and he was in his own little world. Anyway, it was kind of like a fractured family. And that cruise was very colorful. We were in an accident at sea. We had a big hole. We had a big hole in our bulwark. I ended up getting off in Miami. Anyway, I got off in Miami and set my own course. Went back to school. Did really well in school. I mean, I found that was a really good thing to do for me. Got my undergrad from University of Miami, Coral Gables. Got my graduate degree from Florida State University. I had gone up there for my fiance, and then that didn't work. So the company I was with, I was working all day long and going to school at night. And they moved me up to Chicago to become their pension fund manager, which I did. So, and I finished my education at University of Chicago. Then I moved to Michigan, got married. That was a disaster. Anyway, I don't want to give too much of the story away, but it really, apparently, it was, well, things all happened. Okay, I will say this. So our first daughter died. She was born on August 26th. And then my brother, in 1994, was in a car accident. We buried him on August 26th. And my sister, who apparently has all sorts of emotional issues, decided that was the time she was going to scream at me. She was going to spit on my grave. She'd never see me again. I mean, 3 things all at once on a very sensitive day for me. Well, I've had those events that it piles on all at once.
Right, exactly.
And it's like, well, how do you overcome that? Well, you just stand up and you take the lashing. I mean, that hurricane's coming and the trees are falling and you're just standing there. But it again has gotten 5-star reviews and a lot of like, holy moly, we never knew. People who know me who read it is like, holy moly, we never knew. They say it's a very, very inspirational book, but not inspirational in rah rah, come on, you can do this. More like a kick in the gut. If someone can live through that, hey, I can do this. It's called
It's inspirational to the point that it can inspire others to keep going.
to keep going. That's right.
Despite what's going on, despite the tragedies, you can overcome and you can keep going. So that's really a blessing as far as I think about it, because it's one of those tragedy kind of to triumph, and how you can push through and persevere.
Yep.
And so that's what I was taking from it, that you persevered through all of that.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And that's what, that hopefully that's what the readers will take from it too, is that look at all these things, kind of tragic things that happened, but she kept persevering and look on the other side of things now. You can look on the other side. And so many people need that message right there, that even though you're going through this, on the other side of that, look what it can be.
That's true. There is success. I mean, so if I want to paint it in the oh poor me, I can say, well, here is a disabled single parent whose one son was put into a classroom for emotionally impaired children, and she made it. She made it through all of that. Really? Yeah. How many, boy, did I break the odds. And I have two sons. They're both married. They both have good jobs. They're both college graduates. They're wonderful people. We made it. All three of us made it.
Yeah. So you persevered and you made it on the other side of that. A survival. You're a survivor. So that's awesome. That's really awesome. And so that to me is what makes people want to read those types of stories, because you never know what people are going through, but if they can see what's on the other side of the tragic event, then that helps people to keep going. And so to me, that's a good testament to that.
Well, that's that story. That's what I've heard, is that it inspires people to keep going, just push through.
True. So that is really good. Now, what about so why that title? What's the significance of the title?
Well, I have actually been called a tiger and a bulldog and a lot of other things. And normally, I mean, my basic personality is to find another way. I really don't like to fight or to confront. That's really not my way. Mm-hmm. But if you push me into a corner far enough, I'll summon my tiger. And I had to summon my tiger, for instance, when my son decided he needed to leave that enclosed classroom and he wanted to go back to regular school. And I said, fine, you're going to do it. And I sued the school district. I mean, I took them all on, 17 against us. And you know what? He went away to college on a football scholarship. He was an athlete scholar. He graduated on time, with a really good grade point. He's really smart. But I had to really say, okay, I cannot let this happen. And that's when the tiger comes. It's there. I don't really like to do it that much. But if I have to, if I'm in a corner, especially for my kids, if I'm in a corner, look out. Here she comes.
Awesome. That is awesome. So you come out clawing. So now what about, what part of publishing, of the publishing process have you found to be the easiest part of it? For other readers, for other people that might, they want to know that sometimes. What gets you across the finish line?
Well, once I sort of figured out what was going on, it wasn't very hard for me. The publishing, the one thing that I absolutely need is an independent editor who doesn't know me at all. Because I had my first book read by 5 people before I went out there, and college English professors, and I mean really bright people. Well, they were so interested in the story that they missed some of the editing stuff. So I really need a good editor. But it's really not rocket science. My second book has people. I'm an artist, so I can do my own covers. I didn't know that first time around. But I can do my own artwork. I can do my own templates. I can put it out there. I actually started up an imprint called Quint & Quinn. And a friend of mine wants me to publish a book. And then my son's college roommate wants me to publish his book. So, the hard part is marketing. Yeah. There's so much out there. How do you get in front of people? There's a lot out there.
There's a lot out there. Well, we're going to take a second break, and so we're going to go back and hear some more from our wonderful sponsors. and we will be right back.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Tom Gromes, father of market intelligence, writing business books that are a game changer. International author of nonfiction, has written the first and only books on the collapse of Russia and the first and only book on market intelligence. Check them out at mkintel.org. That's mkintel.org, mkintel.org.
I am Grace Allison Blair, an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and modern mystic. I have combined spiritual and psychological principles in my nonfiction self-help books under Grace Allison and fiction books under Grace Blair. Go to modernmysticmedia.com to find Do You Have a Dream? 5 Keys to Realize Your Dream, and my novel, Einstein's Compass, a YA time traveler adventure.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Welcome back, radio audience. We've been interviewing Wendy Thompson, the author of Summon the Tiger and the Third Order. Now, Wendy, what's next for you? What's going on next?
Well, I am in the middle of writing a book called The Man from Burnt Island.
Mm-hmm.
It's a historical fiction. I have to make it fiction because I don't know all the details, but it is based upon what I know of my grandfather's life. He was, and the older I get, the more remarkable he becomes. He was born in 1899. He ran away from home at 15 and lied to get into the 42nd Black Watch in World War I. He ended up in the trenches in France on the Western Front. He survived. He came to the United States on October 9th, 1929, which was just 20 days before the big stock market crash. He had the most amazing life. And so I'm writing a story about a man like that. I have to fill in a lot, but just, I think nowadays, life is so much easier as I've delved into, I've read a couple books on coal mining and I've read books on World War I, and just to give me some background, I think that people today probably could rise to the challenge if they had to, but it won't be as easy as it was for people who actually just got used to hard. I mean, it's like, okay, apparently I got used to hard, and it comes from genetics, because what he went through, it would just surprise. It's like, how in the world can anyone do that? He ended up owning his own company. He had to leave school when he was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he had to go to work in a coal mine. He's amazing. I mean, so this is a book like that. It's not gonna be the world's happiest book because I want to really tell the whole story. It's going to be kind of like maybe a Grapes of Wrath kind of saga.
So we look forward to hearing about that. That sounds like that's going to really be a good book. Now, where can we find you on social media? Where can your people buy your books, and where can we find you on social media?
Okay, I have a Twitter account. It is the number 1, then the word am, then Wendy. So it goes 1 AMWENDY. Facebook, I'm Wendy Thompson, THOMSON. At quitandquinn.com, QUITTANDQUINN.com is the publishing website, and it actually has links all over the place. You can find my books at Indie Lecter. You can find my books on Amazon and in select, actually, Michigan independent bookstores. Let's see, what else? That's Twitter, that's Facebook, that's the website. I think that's about it.
That is awesome. It has been our pleasure to chat with you about your written masterpieces, and we look forward to hearing about the next one that's coming forward. And thank you for your time you shared with us on the show tonight. It's been awesome. It's been I really enjoyed talking to you about your books today. So I really am excited to see what the third one is going to be about, and really get to, to see that historical value that has, and that'll bring to a lot of readers that will read it as well. And just like we always tell everybody, please remember to support our authors and continue to drop everything you read. But we really want you to support our authors. We have some awesome authors that we have been talking to. So please go out and support Wendy Thompson and on her book, Summons the Tiger, and on The Third Order. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, Wendy.
Denise, you're delightful. Thank you so much again for having me.
You are welcome. So good night, and thanks for listening, radio audience. And remember, I have been your host, Denise Bryson, and we were interviewing Wendy Thompson, the author of Summons the Tiger and The Third Order.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.